Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to episode 318 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, brought to you, of course, by jaysfromthecouch.com. We've got a great episode for you this week. I'm really chomping at the bit to get into this one. We're going to talk some Blue Jays, some Bichette, and some really bad takes. And coincidentally, they're all about Bichette. That's right. Very rarely is an episode of the Jays from the Couch podcast really dedicated to one player, but he's worth it. We're going to dive into everything Bichette this week. And there's some bad takes that I'm just chomping at the bit to dispel, mock, make fun of. I don't know where it's going to go, but there are some things I need to share. I'm your host, as always, Shaun Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at DoyleJFTC. Like I said, we've got a great episode for you. Bichette is our theme, and to help me unpack it all, because there's so much regarding Bichette, I've got the usual cast of characters, as they say. First of all, hosting the On Feck Circle Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, the feckless wonder himself, joining us, our American correspondent. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening, Shaun. I screwed up. I must have read the notes wrong. I did research on Bo Bridges, so I'm going to just have to wing it the best that I can. Actually,
that would make a pretty good episode, too. All the Bows we know. Bo Jackson, Bo Derek, all of them. Just all the Bows. She's busy. She had to go look for something.
Yeah, she's kind of sheepish.
Yes, she is. It's true. Oh, man. This episode has gone downhill. It's going to be bad. Anyway, to save us from ourselves, host of Sunny Side of the Dome, Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Karen Suter. Good evening, Karen.
Good evening, Shaun. Good evening, Steve.
See, Karen gets to hear all of our foolishness before she pops up onto the air. She's backstage waiting and going, oh my God, what am I getting into? Every single week, the same thought runs through her head.
I'm always afraid it's going to be the Toronto logo there and that Karen's just going to bail and say, you know what, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this again. So
that's right. You'll hear tires squealing in the background.
Maybe one of my cats will be there instead.
Yeah. Oh, that would be funny. Oh, man. All right. But as precious as they are, they don't offer the insight that you do, which is why you're here. So you can't go anywhere, Karen, because clearly we need you.
She's perfect.
Perfect. Well done. Well done. Man, we're off to a smashing start. Anyway, I'm really excited to dive into this episode because there's a whole lot going on right now with regard to Bichette. However, if you're a regular tuner-inner, a subscriber to our YouTube channel, and you follow us regularly on the Jays from the Couch podcast, you know that we do an MLB segment, an MLB minute, where each of us takes 1 minute. We go around the horn, 1 minute on a particular topic of, well, my choosing, really. But I thought I would actually start with a piece put out. I call it a piece. I don't want to call it an article, but at MLB.com, Jonathan Mayo put out a piece on the 11th, which was a few days ago by my count. And essentially what it was the best farm systems in baseball. And I think this is an important conversation for the Toronto Blue Jays because we were kind of chatting about this behind the scenes before we went on air. The farm system has taken on a bit of an overhaul-ish. I don't know if you can call it an overhaul, but that's, I'm sure, to come. So it's an interesting time, I think, to bring up this conversation. So we're going to refer to the piece, and I just want to clarify this Jonathan Mayo piece. What they did was they rank the farm systems in baseball, and then they have Baltimore first, Los Angeles second, St. Louis third, Arizona, and then 5 other teams after them. And the way this worked, just so we're clear, MLB executives looked at this is, so I guess this is like a list from MLB executives who are doing the rankings, which I find very interesting because it's not just one writer's opinion. It's people who are in the know, who uses the draft the best: the Dodgers, the Orioles, Cardinals, Reds. Long story short, in all of the angles or whatever approaches or ways he looks at the farm system, the Toronto Blue Jays don't even rank anywhere on there at all. And, whether or not that's disappointing, I guess we'll find out, because you get 1 minute, each of us. We'll go around the horn to weigh in on that piece that we all took a look at. And I think I'll start on the on-fec circle. 1 minute, sir. Your time begins now.
Well, thank you, Shaun. When you're doing all these different rankings, you got to remember that they're looking at it as far as tiers about how many potential all-stars are in the system, how many everyday regulars or starting rotation pieces are there, and then fringe major league players. So I would think that when you're looking at all of these teams here and the people in their farm systems, what's going on in the draft for those teams means that they're getting people that are going to help them soon, and help them and be all-stars and regulars. Blue Jays players, I would say overall, the best of them have been traded away. Those that remain are probably more in that tier 3 fringe prospect type of thing than they are as far as all-star caliber. So that's going to reflect in that. Keep in mind that going into the trade deadline, the Blue Jays system was ranked 29th. Not the trade deadline, but the trade season free agency. And Alex Anthopoulos' Atlanta Braves were 30th. So,
sorry, I couldn't click the stop button on the music, and the circus just kept. I apologize, Steve.
Well, the on-tech circle is a non-stop circus, so it's okay. We might need to change my theme music now.
Amazing. All right, Karen, Sunny Side of the Dome, host. You have 1 minute. Go.
Yeah, so, I mean, as far as the Blue Jays farm system, I'm not as down on them as a lot of people seem to be. And when people talk about their farm system taking a hit, I remember that over the past couple of years, the Blue Jays have traded away several of their higher prospects in order to do their best to improve the major league team. From Simeon Woods Richardson, Austin Martin to get Jose Barrios, 4 prospects to get Matt Chapman. They had to trade away Jordan Groshans for 2 relief pitchers they desperately needed. Samad Taylor was part of the Whit Merrifield trade. And then Alek Manoah and Alejandro Kirk have become Major League All-Stars for the Jays. And then you look at a prospect like Ricky Tiedemann, who was drafted in the 3rd round. And now people are talking about him as a perennial all-star. So I don't feel as bad about it as some people seem to. And that's as good a place as any for me to finish.
I was quicker on it that time. Let's see how quick I am now that it's my turn. We'll see. All right, 1 minute now. If I'm being honest, I'm not concerned with the strength of, or I should say the rankings of the Toronto Blue Jays farm system. And here's why. Prospects are prospects. The chance of a prospect making it a massive impact like an Alek Manoah did for the Toronto Blue Jays is very small. Prospects are for 2 things. One of them is to come up and be big league players for your team. The other is to trade. And I'm not suggesting one is more than the other. In fact, I would suggest that maybe, just maybe because of the frequency and the likelihood of it happening, that prospects are for trading. It happens. And I have to be honest, if people are lamenting losing prospects, then that means you must be okay with another 2019 season or a 2018 season or again and again and again and again. This is what they're for. I don't care where the Blue Jays farm system stands because we've got a pretty good Major League Baseball team.
Amen.
And that was the MLB Minute, brought to you by jaysfromthecouch.com. All right. Bo Bichette. Wow. Okay, so this has been really, there's a whole lot of bad takes coming surrounding Bo Bichette. And they've started I don't want to even say they started in the off season. I think they started even before that, particularly near the end of the season, particularly when he ran into George Springer. I think there's a lot of garbage. I'm trying to keep this a family show, and so I think the purpose of the episode, what we're going to do here is we're going to tackle a lot of it, and I think the first most pressing part of that is the arbitration issue. Bo Bichette is $2.5 million away from an agreement on an arbitration salary for the 2023 season. He files. So the way arbitration works is the player's side files a number, the team's side files a number, and they either come to an agreement or they actually head to an arbitration hearing where an arbitrator chooses one or the other. There's no middle ground. It's you get this one or that one. And that's it. So, and let's be real here. Realistically speaking, the Blue Jays are not going to be losing out if they have to pay the full $7.5 million for Bo Bichette, right? And it seems to me, I guess, first of all, let's even start with before we head down the road, let's just start with an initial reaction here. So, Steve, I'm going to start with you. The reaction to Bo Bichette filing at 7.5, team filing at 5, and whether you think that's surprising, whether you think that is to be expected, are both of them insane for their numbers?
Well, I don't think that either of the numbers are necessarily insane. What really caught me by surprise is that even going back to Cleveland, Mark Shapiro does not like to go to arbitration. He does everything that he can, and Atkins obviously was under him. And even during their time here, they really go out of their way to try to either extend players or settle before the arbitration hearing. So that being said, I am surprised that they did not want to go maybe a little bit higher as far as the Blue Jays offer. I think they kind of lowballed them there a little bit. And I think it's setting up for what may happen as we get closer to the free agent year, in that Bo wants to get paid, maybe not as Vladdy's getting paid, but he wants to get paid. And he feels that his numbers match up to a variety of younger players with his experience. And that's why he's going to ask for that. So when I heard that it was that disparity was there, for the first time, I kind of doubted that Bo Bichette is going to be here long term. I mean, it's way too soon to be jumping to that conclusion. But if you're going into an arbitration and you're $2.5 million apart, that's not setting a good foundation for potentially either getting an extension or for potentially keeping that player happy enough where he's going to want to stay and not want to try to explore free agency.
Okay. Yeah. And before we dive into that long-term effect, because this is really the meat and potatoes of the conversation, I think, for a lot of people, I want to get Karen, I want to get your reaction here with regard to the numbers and the fact that they just didn't come to an agreement.
Yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate, and my own thoughts about it are kind of all over the map. I mean, as everybody knows, I'm very active on Twitter, and there are certain people whose opinions I put a little more weight in than a lot of other people. And some people that I trust say, Bo Bichette and the Blue Jays going to arbitration means absolutely nothing as far as the future. And all I can say is I really hope that they're right. I mean, I am still dealing with, as a fan, the aftermath of having two of my favorite players traded away in the same offseason. I don't think I could handle losing Bo Bichette as well. Like there's only so much this old heart can take before it's broken beyond repair. I mean, I want, in my heart, I want him and Guerrero Jr. to be lifetime Blue Jays. Rogers can afford it, but will they do it? And yeah, I mean, Bichette, as I always say, every player has their own priorities. I mean, pretty much all of them want a good paycheck, obviously, and then some of them are looking for other things, a chance to win. They want to stay with the organization that they know and love. For some people, it's geography. I mean, there's a whole host of reasons. When Bichette, after Fernando Tatis Jr. signed the mega deal that he had, came out with a comment that, well, good for him, even though he probably left money on the table. That just, I don't even want to think about it. But clearly, he has a very high opinion of what his worth in free agency is going to be. And I'm not sure that there's a team out there that's going to offer him what he wants. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I want to see him here long term, but I wouldn't really bet the farm on it when you hear things like that. And so the only thing I know we're not talking about Guerrero, but I just found it very noteworthy that all the projections are out there, and then there are many players who signed, and then there's those few that didn't. And I find it somewhat interesting, and I hope I'm not making too big a deal out of this, that Guerrero actually gave the Blue Jays the tiniest of hometown discounts compared to what he was projected to receive. Is that maybe an indication that if the time comes, hopefully the time will come to talk long term, that he'll accept being paid and not want a record-breaking deal? So, I mean, I look at his salary. I look at Ryu and Grichuk money coming off the books next year, and there's enough for at least one big long-term contract extension without their overall payroll going up.
Right. So, yeah. It's a fascinating conversation, right? Because there's so many angles to it. And the bigger angle, obviously, the one everybody's talking about is the long-term effect of this kind of disagreement. But I don't see it really as a big disagreement between these two parties, the player and the team. I don't see it as a massive difference, really. And, and I don't mean that to say, well, either side could have just given in and accepted the other side, right? Like, and that wouldn't have, that's not what I'm saying. What I mean is it doesn't seem to be such a difference that it's going to create some kind of riff, right? The arbitration process isn't what it used to be. It wasn't, people don't go in on, banging tables and throwing chairs and all that stuff to save a few bucks anymore. It's not the process that it used to be. And it's very I would even be surprised if they even meet in a room to discuss this at all. It's here's my proposal. Here's your proposal. No, we can't agree. No big deal. I think more now than ever, players understand that this is a business, but that also means that the long-term effect is impacted, right? That that because it's a business, you're going to see players just out to get as much as they can. And there's nothing wrong with that, because owners are going to try and spend as little as they can. That's the way it goes. That's the business of, that's the way the world works, really. But so I don't think this arbitration cost or this arbitration difference is going to be a sever in the relationship. Okay, that's where my standing is. So now, Steve, let's dive into that. This arbitration difference, never mind anything else, because we're going to talk about the other things, right? But arbitration alone, do you really think that this one instance is going to be enough to cause a rift in a relationship and have negative impacts in the future?
I do. And again, I know you don't want to go into all these other things, but Bichette is looking at monies that are being spent on other players, because that's obviously Los Atkins' approach. Let's buy what we need. Let's not try to trade for it, or we certainly aren't drafting well enough to get the players there. So Bo's looking at that and said, so maybe originally he was thinking, okay, I could settle for 6, 6.3, 6.4, something like that, that would be okay. But when he's seeing some of the other contracts being spent on the quality of players that it's being spent on, if I'm Bo Bichette and his team, I'm gonna try to push the envelope. Actually, I'm surprised it was only 7.5 that he asked for. To be honest with you, I thought it would even be a higher ask. But I'm sure, looking at what the projections were for other players, they decided 7.5 was going to be, as Cameron referred to with Vladdy, a slight hometown discount. And I think that might have ruffled some feathers.
That's fair enough. I mean, and really, he could have asked for a lot more, right? If you look at just for something simple, and I know how we feel, but just to illustrate the point, if you look at Fangraphs, they've assigned a dollar amount based on wins above replacement. And I know how we all feel about this, but I'm just using, just bear with me, play the game. Last season, put up 4.5 wins. The season before, 5.1. Projected at 4 or just above 4 for next season, right? So he's a 4-win player. So looking at that, Fangraphs put a value of Bo's 2022 season at $35.6 million. The year before that, $40.9 million. So if we're talking about what a player is worth, I think, it doesn't matter what the player's asking for because he's not going to get what he's actually worth. So I guess he's not going to see $30-40 million, obviously. He's not, what is his name there? Juan Soto. But he could have asked for a lot more. It doesn't mean he's going to get it, especially when the team comes in at 5. Obviously that's not on the table. I think he made a reasonable offer. I think he thought it was a reasonable offer that the team could absorb. And Steve, you do have a point there. He's watching Kevin Kiermaier get $9 million, right? Like that's, compare the two. We're looking at maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, if all things work out, 1-win player versus 4-win player, right? Like I get it, which is really just for me, it highlights the how do I say this? The criminality of the arbitration process. Young players playing in the best years of their lives and putting up numbers that they do, and then they get paid for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, but they understand that. Yeah, going in, their agents are telling them that, going in. Okay, look, I mean, you're going to feel underpaid, but once we hit the free agent market, if we don't get an extension, that's where you're going to basically come out ahead because, in essence, you're going to have a longer term. You're maybe not be playing at that peak level at that point, and you're getting paid for lesser production later. So you're kind of having to bite the bullet here. So, I mean, I know you want to go to Morton's Steakhouse. Maybe you need to get reservations somewhere else for the next 2 seasons. I mean, I know it's tough getting by on 7.5, Bo, but, I mean, Dad made some money, so hit him up for a loan to kind of bridge you over until you can get the big contract.
Listen, years ago we had Bo Bichette on this podcast, and I remember talking to him, and he walked and he didn't have any problem telling us that for his 16th birthday he was given the Mercedes blah 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 blah, whatever letters and numbers came after it. And I was like, cool, Bo, cool. Well, on my teacher's salary, my Honda is cool. And you got that at 16. Awesome. Wonderful. Great. Yeah. But don't worry, you'll have to wait to make some money.
With the audience there, maybe.
Yeah. Read the room, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Karen, in your eyes, though, does this create animosity moving forward, or does it create a tension in the relationship between the two parties?
I mean, again, I'm hopeful that that's not the case. I don't think that going to arbitration in and of itself is going to do that. Now, again, you look at everything we've heard of Bichette and his mindset. He really seems to value getting paid what he thinks he's worth. So, and there have just been several different indications of that. So, Again, not quite sure what the long-term future holds, but I mean, I'm with you in that I want to see good players getting paid. And I wish there were that happy medium, or that both sides could agree on a happy medium. One thing I'm delighted about is that in the current collective bargaining agreement, that they've added that pre-arbitration bonus pool, so that the best pre-arbitration players are getting something extra, as they would be. So, and I mean, I get what you're saying, and I saw those Fangraph numbers as well. That if strictly speaking, as a free agent, he were worth 35 million, then why can't the Jays pay him 7.5? And my heart wishes they would, but then he's not stupid, Bichette, and I'm sure his agent isn't stupid, and they've got to know that a first-year arbitration eligible player isn't getting 35 million. I don't care who you are. So, I mean, he can ask for whatever he wants, but the higher the ask is, and again, that's that projected amount of 6.1 million is out there for public consumption. So the higher over that number he is with his ask, the less the likelihood that his number is going to be chosen. And then end up with the Blue Jays 5 million, which, oh no, how will you ever survive? But no, it's not what he was asking for. So
yeah.
What about it?
Right. And I know we joke about, poor Bo having to get by on $5 million, but I mean, let's be real, poor Rogers having to spend $7 million, right? Like which is a bigger ask, if but let's maybe move into talking about the why behind Bo Bichette's arbitration process, because I think there's that in and of itself leads us to talking about some other really bad takes. So, the Blue Jays have spent a lot of energy on improving their defense. Run prevention. Every year I feel like there's a buzzword or a catchphrase coming from Ross Atkins, and this year it's run prevention. They focus on outfield defense, and it worked. It's paid off. They have, on paper, a better defensive outfield. Cool. However, in doing all of that, they neglected to address the bigger defensive issue, which is shortstop. And all the respect in the world to Bo. He can get to just about any ball, but he cannot make that throw to first. And we know, in fact, Vladdy should take Bo out for dinner, because part of the reason why Vladdy got his $14 million is because of that Gold Glove nomination, and that came from Bo Bichette.
Not nomination, win.
Yeah, right, yeah. So
he should have got a Purple Heart.
A Purple Heart.
Whatever that order or medal is in Canada. I apologize, my Canadian friends. I don't know what that is.
But, the Order of Canada?
Well, no, if you're wounded in battle. I mean, every country calls it something different. But
yeah, the Victoria Cross.
Victoria Cross.
Is that what you mean? Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Well, I mean, because the Order of Canada, we just give that out to anybody. We don't care. We're just happy that somebody's going to a ceremony from the Canadian government. We're just like, yay, okay, cool. Steve, I'm sure yours is in the mail. It's coming, buddy. Don't worry.
I bet it's coming. It's incoming, I'm sure, yeah.
Anyway, so Bo Bichette's defense has been a massive bone of contention for a lot of people, right? To the point where when the offseason started, especially when he ran into George Springer, I do not blame Bo for that. Steve already is angry with me. So I'm going to start with you, Steve. Let's talk about Bo's defense. Okay. Let's talk about whether or not that suppressed his value.
In whose eyes? Well, obviously not Fangraphs, because I guess Aaron Judge is a $200 million a year player if you're going to base it on whatever stupid analytics that they're using there. But I mean, Bo's defense, again, the fact that he gets to balls, that says a lot. So theoretically, you're keeping the ball on the infield. Maybe Bo needs to eat some of those balls that he gets to, rather than trying to be the big star and make the big play. Should he be moved to second base? Yes, he should. Will this front office have the courage to do that or bring it up? No. But in essence, what they're saying is, by giving a $5 million low ball offer, is this is what we think you actually do bring because of your defensive liabilities. It doesn't matter what you're doing with the bat. You're only a $5 million player. So that's where some of the nuances get in. And that's why I brought up the contracts of Kiermaier and Brandon Belt. How can you possibly justify giving those guys that much money if you're only willing to play what you all say is the core? That's why I wore my little Canadian baseball, the future of Canadian baseball t-shirt. I've got Bo, Biggio, and Vlad on the back of this shirt. You're telling the player that we don't really believe that you're going to be that elite shortstop by giving that low ball offer when you're willing. And I love the Kiermaier signing. I think it was a brilliant signing for Atkins, but you can't do that with your core player that you want to keep, because now what are you telling some of the players that are not yet eligible? What are you now showing the Manoas? What are you now showing the Kirks? Whatever player you want to insert there. What are you telling them if you're the guy that you have been touting now for what it seems like a decade? I know it hasn't been that long, but it just seems that long. How can you justify only giving him a really low arbitration offer when you're saying in every other turn of things, he's our future, he's the core, he's this? I mean, you have to back up your words with actions, and that's a problem with this current Blue Jays front office, is they don't always back up their words. They got lots of words, they just don't really back them up with actions.
All right. So, Karen, I have some thoughts on some things that Steve said. Before we do that, Steve, if you were curious, Fangraphs has Aaron Judge's 2022 worth $91.4 million. $100 million almost. There you go.
For a season.
for what it's worth, which may not be a whole lot.
You know what? I want to announce my run for the presidency of the United States. First of all, I'm 20 years younger than everybody that's been running lately. But secondly, the first thing I'm going to do when I get in office is I'm going to ban analytics. This is why analytics have to be stopped. Okay? I mean, it's worse than alcoholism. It's worse than fentanyl. Any possible disaster you can think of. It's worse than Trumpism. Analytics need to be stopped. So I'm declaring my candidacy for the presidency of the United States to protect all of you out there, and including that thing creeping north of the border from this analytical terror that we're living under. Forget about ISIS. Analytics and Fangraphs is much worse than ISIS.
I'm dying here. I'm dying. Oh,
God.
Ooh.
And I edited myself. All the bad things I just said. Imagine what was running through this head.
That's why I can't. Steve, you're throwing me off here, buddy. I didn't. So there are some questions coming in your comments and whatnot, and everybody who's sending them in, I do see them. I'm not ignoring them. I'm saving them because each of them has a good spot. But I have to throw this one out here. My partner in crime. For those of you who love baseball, you should follow the OK Baseball podcast every Wednesday. Christian and I on Slasher Sports have started doing an OK Baseball podcast. And Christian comments that he's 100% wearing his analytics shirt on the podcast this week. And I cannot wait for that. OK Baseball podcast available everywhere. Subscribe and enjoy. So, Karen, Bo's defense. Does it have, is that why, let's be real here, is that why his offer was the way it was from the Blue Jays?
I mean, I think that's a part of it, honestly. And Steve, who the heck knew that the MLB's antitrust exemption was instituted because of you? But seriously, though.
Cheers. Nicely done.
Thank you. Seriously, though, I mean, Bo Bichette, Shaun, you disappeared. You disappeared into a black hole there, literally.
I'm barely hanging on, Karen. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I mean, Bichette is the player who he is right now, with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I really believe that he has it in him, talent wise, to be a complete player. To be, I mean, he's an elite hitter, talent wise and results wise at times. And here's hoping that somebody like Don Mattingly can actually help him find that consistently over a whole season. I believe that he has the ability to be an above average defensive shortstop. He's not there yet. We all know that. But I watch him. I watch some of the plays that he makes that, to me, like at times he's making plays that are much more than routine difficulty. So if he can do that, that tells me that he has the physical ability. My own opinion in watching him, and I don't know if I'm way out to lunch or out in left field wondering where my Gurriel Jr. is, but I mean, I watch Bichette play defense, and the impression that I get is that here he is trying to be like absolutely the best player he possibly can, which means making good defense. And that when a ball comes to him, I think he rushes himself because he's trying so hard to not make errors that he rushes himself, and in rushing himself makes errors. I think it's like a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy that people have criticized his defense, rightly so, and he's trying so hard to make that right. He's trying too hard, and it's backfiring. So is he valued the way he is because of his defense? I think that's a factor. But I would love to see the kind of season from him that I think he's capable of having. That I mean, I want him and Vlad to split the league MVP vote because they both hit so well. I want Bichette's defense to be amazing, and people to go, well, who are you, and what did you do with Bo Bichette that you're so good with that glove there? And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think... I think the defense obviously has a lot to do with the overall feeling of Bo Bichette, which has an impact on future negotiations. The arbitration case itself is maybe a kind of a byproduct of that, but I think there is absolutely concern about Bo Bichette's defense and how the Blue Jays have gone about handling that. That will have an absolutely negative impact on their future negotiations. So it's not the fact that Bo has made a bunch of errors at shortstop. Let's get that out of here. They're not trading him because you were pissed off that he couldn't make that throw to first base. It's not going to happen. Stop it. Delete your account. However, there are some hints. We have seen some hints. We've heard some hints. There are hints that the Blue Jays aren't happy with his defense. We have now heard last season they tried to get Corey Seager. Last offseason, tried to get Corey Seager to play shortstop. This season, we just found out today, Scott Boras said that the Blue Jays were one of the teams who were interested, who were pursuing Xander Bogaerts. That's 2 off seasons in a row the Blue Jays have tried to replace. 3, excuse me, you're right, because of Francisco Lindor the year before that. I'm just an even bigger genius than I realized. Not really, but anyway. But yeah, so 3 off seasons in a row now, the Blue Jays have tried to replace Bo Bichette at shortstop. That is the message that he will remember. That, not this arbitration, it's the 3 times they tried to replace me. That is going to hurt the relationship. That is going to hurt in the negotiations when it comes to an extension. Would Bo move to second base? Absolutely. He said it. He'll do it. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if it's going to help the team win. So that's not going to be the issue. If they say, hey, Bo, you know what? We're looking to sign you 7, 8 more years, 9 years, 14, 15, 17 years, whatever it is. These contracts are gone bananas. But we'd like you to play second base. That's not going to be a deal breaker for him. But what the continued year after year after year trying to replace you, I feel, Steve, that is going to be a bigger issue when it comes time to talk about a contract extension.
Did we just sneak fake news in there saying that the Blue Jays actually were in on Corey Seager? And that they were actually really in on Francisco Lindor? So I didn't realize that we were doing fake news here. I apologize. I wasn't prepared.
All we have are the reports.
And where did those reports come from?
Everywhere.
Everywhere but a front office or an agent. Now, okay, now with the Bogaerts thing coming from the agent, okay. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to say Boris even said that the Blue Jays sniffed around on Correa too. In between one of the 7 or 8 contracts that he signed in the offseason before settling in Minnesota. I think Boris in one of those press conferences had said that teams like the Blue Jays had also shown interest. But there's so many levels to this. A player can accept being replaced by a better player for the most part. I don't think that Bo Bichette, and because of the talent and potential that Karen was referring to and that you referred to, Shaun, he really believes that he can be an above average or elite shortstop. He has that confidence. He has that, inner drive that he really believes that whatever the issues are, whether it's the yips or whatever's going on here, that he can become that elite all-star defensive Gold Glove level shortstop. So, I think that plays into this a little bit more. Now, if it was Santiago Espinal getting upset because they were going out after Bogaerts or allegedly Seager or allegedly Lindor, okay, then you say, come on. I love Espinal, but if you can get one of those guys, yes, you need to move to second base or whatever it would be. So this is just a snowball effect. And I think you see that historically with the Blue Jays, not just under the Atkins regime of terror, you actually see where a player doesn't get demonized, but suddenly their faults, let's say Marcus Stroman, for example, are focused on with much more brighter lights than another player for whatever reason, whether there's things behind the scenes that we don't know about or something like this where, is this a statement? Is this the Blue Jays basically daring Bo Bichette to have the type of season that they're going to have to pay, like they paid for Vladdy? Are they daring him? Okay, you know what? We think you're only worth $5 million. Prove us wrong. I think it's a bad negotiating strategy, but is that sort of behind some of the thinking of why they would go with such a low ball amount on that?
Yeah, I don't have that answer. I would love to be in the room, obviously, when they're, coming up with that $5 million figure, right? But I would also love to be in the room when Bo is coming up with his $7.5 million figure as well, right? But Karen, this constant need, or I shouldn't, this constant effort, we'll put effort in quotation marks, right? Because we have no, as Steve said, we don't really have specific proof other than the Bogaerts thing, and that's Boris, who, whatever. So, Karen, but it feels like there's an effort year after year to find something better. And that it feels like the Blue Jays are kind of settling with Bo Bichette because there's no questioning his offensive abilities. He's elite for a shortstop. It's the defense that's in question here. So, Karen, is that constant effort to replace him, do you think that is going to really have a bigger impact on contract extensions?
Um, I mean, again, I hope not. What I want to see happen and what I fear might happen could be two different things. But all of a sudden, something came to me. Do you remember David Price? Did you remember his philosophy? What he said? If there were times when he wasn't pitching well, and maybe he got taken out of a game and didn't like it, that he hung a sign in his home locker that said, "If you don't like it, pitch better." Bichette, I challenge you the same way. If you don't think you're getting a fair shake from the Blue Jays, either in the money that you're being offered or their efforts 3 years in a row, and I'm very satisfied with the sources that say that it's been 3 years in a row. If you don't like any of that, go work on your defense. I mean, he's not an unathletic player. He can play shortstop, like find whatever it is that's preventing him from being a good defender and fix it, because he's the only one that can do it.
Right. It will be interesting because they are going to have to make a decision, right? And one of the comments that we have here, I'm going to save Rocket. I see you. I love you. I appreciate you, but I'm saving yours here for a second. I'm going to go back to Christian because he has another element to Bo's game that we were talking about. And Christian actually shared this from me, a piece from Fangraphs, asking, do you think Bo's base running woes had anything to do with them not agreeing on the same number? So for those of you who aren't necessarily familiar with Bo's woes, as Karen just messaged me, Karen is subtle with her humor. And anyway, Bo's woes. See, now here I go again, back into the black abyss here. Anyway, the Fangraphs piece measured Bo's base running. And actually, he is probably, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, other than Starling Marte, Bo Bichette has seen the worst drop-off in base running ability from one year to the next. From 2021 to 2022, Bo Bichette, only one person has taken a bigger step back in their base running than Bo. Bo made up for a lot with his ability to steal a base, which we didn't see as much of last year. I'm just pulling it up here. So he's got 25 in 2021 and then 13 last season. And his base running value, because as Steve is loath to tell you, and he'll use this in his presidency campaign, but base running value in 2021 was 6.9. And it dropped all the way to minus 2.7 last year. That is a massive drop off. Now, you would expect that the real reason, and I want to thank Christian for sharing this with me, because the real reason that this is concerning is because you expect to see a drop in a player's base running, their legs, essentially, as they age. But Bo is still young. And it defies logic on the surface. Right? But, Steve, I'll throw it to you. Let's talk about his ability to steal some bases, to run the bases, and whether or not that has anything to do with Charlie Montoyo changing to John Schneider, whether or not it's maybe an overall philosophy, maybe it's a keep Bo healthy. I don't actually know what the actual reasoning behind it is. But Steve, I guess it's a kind of a two-part question. First of all, your reaction and your comments about the drop in base running, but also whether you see the rule changes next year actually improving that for Bo with the slightly bigger bases and the whole defensive alignment and all of that stuff.
I really think it was more a case of opportunity in 2021, where he needed perhaps to steal a base, where I think there was a little bit more lineup stability, though you can argue that it was not as productive in 2022 as in 2021. I think overall we could agree that the lineup was a little bit more consistent across the board. I do want to make an aside. If we were going to base arbitration offers for Blue Jays players based on their base running abilities, everybody would be getting the minimum salary offer. Okay, because basically that's just something that just not. And when you look at some of the coaches in the minors, Casey Candel's and some of the other minor league managers, I don't understand why their base running fundamentals are so bad. But that's where
Kevin Biggio, he's a good base runner. He's smart.
Yeah. Okay. Right. But so put that aside there. I just wanted to mention that. But see, this is I don't want to go off on another tangent here. Analytics cannot tell you or take into account situations. It just tells you black, white. And I that's my problem. If you're going to use analytics like that against Bo, okay, did he have half as many stolen bases? Yes, he did. But, and I haven't gone back. Now it's going to give me something to do over the weekend. I'm going to go back and look at the video of every game and see whether or not, he was given, signals, to or opportunities to steal a base. I would really hope that this is not something that they factored into their equation. That they would keep it really just a basic what the value of this player is going into this season. And I'm hoping they're not nitpicking stupid stuff like that that's made up anyway. So
Right. Well, it's an attempt to quantify everything, and as we know in life, not everything can be quantified. I get it. But that being said, we're still going to focus on the quantified base running. And so, Karen, I want to throw that to you. And I think that part of the base running metric includes grounding into double plays and things like that. And I believe the piece made reference to the batting order. And Steve, you're kind of alluding to this is part of that situational stuff, right? Like who's hitting in front of you, who's hitting behind you, that kind of thing. And in 2022, that was different than perhaps the year before. So maybe, that plays into it as well. If you're hitting behind Alejandro Kirk, maybe, or whatever, right? Who knows? But regardless, Karen, when you think about excuse me, next year, do you expect, which is the real Bo here do you expect that maybe the infield shifting in the bigger bases will help, or is there hope? Which is the real Bo?
Oh, I still think that he has a lot of upside, that he's going to go back to being overall one of the better players in baseball. Again, having, to me, and I really hope I'm right about this, having a bench coach like Don Mattingly, who has done what there is to do in baseball. He's been a player, he's been an all-star, he's been a league MVP, he's managed a good major league team, he's managed a not so good major league team. I mean, he's seen and done it all. And I'm hopeful that his experience, that he will help to bring out the best in all of these guys. So we'll see how it goes, and yeah.
Right. Okay. So now I'm going to go back here to our comments. We're just about out of time. But I want to hit these. So Rocket, watching on YouTube. Thank you as always, Rocket. I've always been very convinced to myself we will eventually have to come to a decision on choosing Bo or Vlad. Very quickly, Steve, in 5 words or less, or fewer, I should say. I'm an English teacher, for God's sake. Steve, in 5 words or fewer, will we have to make a decision?
Yes.
Between Bo?
Yes, and it's Vlad. Yes, and it's Vlad. I even had a word to spare.
A word to spare. Love it. Karen, same question. 5 words or fewer. Will we have to make a decision?
That's not what it comes to.
No? That's not what it comes... You're over.
Uh-oh.
It's okay. Steve was under by 1. You guys evened it out.
There you go.
Perfect. A perfect 10, you guys are. Look at that.
Yeah, your weighted word usage was inflated. So,
expected weighted.
I was going to say Steve's expected word usage was way low.
Yeah, right. I definitely underperformed there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, I actually think that they don't have to choose. And I don't think that I also don't think they have to move Bo off a shortstop either. So all of you people who are out there tweeting that, Bo, just stop. They can win a World Series with Bo as their shortstop. Stop it. And I don't think they have to choose. There is enough money for both. Go ahead, Steve.
I think they already have chosen.
And that may be true. And
I'm going to back that up with, did you notice another player that didn't come to terms on arbitration?
Teoscar Hernandez. Yep. I was just going to get to that because one of our, where was it here? It was Dulcimerist, actually. I think I saw somewhere that Teo is going to arbitration with the Mariners. Yes, he is. And guess what? They offered him $14.3 million.
And that wasn't good enough. He's going to be another Edwin. He thinks there's a huge offer out there for him, and it's not going to be what he thinks.
Teoscar, buddy, tread lightly. That's all I'm saying.
So they made that choice, and that's why they dumped him. They knew they weren't going to be able to get him to a reasonable thing, and it was going to blow up. So, so for me, all of these little things keep adding up, leading to now that I'm way past my 5 words, that they have to choose, and I think they already have.
Right. In for a penny, in for a pound, right? Might as well. Actually, Dulcimerist is weighing in here. Teo asked for that much. I feel so much better about the trade. He turned down $14.3 million, but you know what? It is what it is. I want to thank everybody. Sorry, I got distracted here. I want to thank everybody for tuning in as always and offering up your comments and questions and all of that stuff. Christian's watching on YouTube. Fire. Great show, everyone. Christian, if there is a fire, please hang up and call 911. Stop commenting on our show. I joke. Thank you, as always, my partner in crime over at the OK Baseball podcast, Christian Rao. Thank you so much. We're at the end of the show. I want to thank everybody for their comments on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. And don't forget, of course, that you don't have to necessarily chime in on the live show. You can still add your comments on all of those mediums, and we will respond and can keep that conversation going because Bo Bichette is a huge topic of conversation. And guess what? We love all of your takes, the bad ones, the good ones, the in between. We love them all. So keep them coming on those. And don't forget as well, you can listen to our audio version, whether you're riding the subway, at the gym on the treadmill, or doing some yard work, shoveling the driveway, or just snuggling up with a blanket. You can listen to the Jays from the Couch podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, everywhere you find a podcast, you'll find us. So subscribe everywhere. Click that subscribe button. Please give us the love, because we love you right back. As always, I want to thank Karen and Steve for taking your Monday evening and dedicating your time and helping me do this. It's so much fun, and it's because of both of you, so thank you for that. Don't forget, tune in to Sunny Side of the Dome Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and tomorrow on Tuesday, the On-Fex Circle is 6 p.m. Eastern Time as well. Lots of Blue Jays coverage for you. We're coming up. I'm actually diving in. We've got some little treats and new things coming at Jays from the Couch, especially on our YouTube and social medias and stuff like that. So be sure to check out those and stay tuned, because I'm going to have some fun. That's what I've decided. This season is going to be fun. I feel good about this season. So we're going to have some fun with it. So follow Jays from the Couch everywhere on all the social medias, and stay in touch and all of that stuff. So for Karen, excuse me, got a little frog in my throat there. For Karen, for Steve, and of course, Bo Bichette. We got to mention Bo. Got to give some love there. This is Shaun Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at DoyleJFTC. Hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle, and you don't miss it. Take care.
That's Wonder 2024.